fair. I mean, nobody sees in the back, do they? Should have higher chairs. Can we do that? Shall we stand up? Is that better? Okay.
Do you want to stand up?
Yeah.
We can stand up. I don't mind.
No, otherwise, they can't see.
Gives us maybe we can move tables out. We have room to dance too if we need to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out to this on-camera chat with Stellan Skarsgård. I like to do these kind of free form. I don't want to just go through all the hits and to talk about each
Failures.
film. It's too easy. I'd rather be able to have a conversation. And at a certain point, we are going to turn it over for some questions at the end. But I do want to start at least the beginning of your career. You got to start fairly early in your teens. What made you decide that you wanted to be a performer?
Well, my first performance was actually in school when I think I was like 8 years old, and I got a role in a school play, and the role was it was a snowdrift. And I spent most of the play under a sheet on the stage, and then spring came and I had to move out. So that's how I started. But then at the age, I always wanted to become a diplomat because I thought it would be a great idea to save the world. But then at the age of 16, I got this role in a TV series, and then I got more roles, and I still haven't decided what to do when I grow up, actually. It's just started.
I feel like you still haven't answered me. What was the impetus? What made you feel that desire to want to perform?
I don't know. I started as an amateur, and I enjoyed not only performing, but I enjoyed being in the theater with actors and everybody working in theater. It was a less conventional place than school. And people seemed to have more fun and be freer, and the toleration level was much higher. All the weird people are drawn to theater, and all the people that are not accepted by society are drawn to theater. So it was quite a vital point at that time. But then I just continued working with it, and I enjoy being creative. But to me it's much more fun to be creative with people than on my own. So that's why I didn't become a writer or a painter. I became an actor because then I get help being creative.
I feel it's sometimes really hard to talk about acting because just how much of it is instinctual and internal, and it's something that comes from within you that it's once you start talking about it can sound really pretentious. But what is it now? What is that itch that it scratches for you? What now, having done it for so long?
I don't know. Somebody asked me to write a book about how to act, and I said I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. And it's true. It's every new project is just as scary as the first one was, and a lot of my work is actually fighting my fear. Because I get nervous. Every time I say yes to something, I regret it immediately. I just see this mountain I have to climb. But then there are those moments when you're working with good actors, a good material, and a good director, and suddenly you're doing a scene, and things start to happen that you hadn't planned, and suddenly you're flying. I think Werner Herzog did a very good short film about a ski jumper called Steiner once. And the film started with, you saw the ski jumper, he was East German. He was walking in the forest and he was terrified. And then you followed him up in the tower and he was terrified. And then he jumped and he was terrified. And then he flew for 6 seconds or something. And he was the happiest man on earth. And then he was terrified again. And acting to me is like that. Those few seconds when you're flying are amazing. But it is still a scary business, but it's addictive.
Could you talk about any of those specific scary moments as something where you felt that 6 seconds in the air?
Well, they come now and then. They're not as often as you think, but you feel when it's swinging. It's like being a jazz musician. You meet some other musicians, then you start trying out some stuff, and then you start suddenly, hey, it's swinging. That's acting. But scary, it's scary all the time. There was 5 years I couldn't stand in front of a camera because I had camera fright. And that is really horrifying. Because when the camera's rolling, then you just cramp up and you can't produce anything good, and you just want to die or be somewhere else.
When was that?
The last time, those 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
that was, if I say how long ago it was, you're going to think I'm 100 years old.
Well, then how about that?
No, it's a long time ago.
Well, then how about this? What changed? What unlocked that?
Well, what unlocked it was I couldn't work for 5 years in front of the camera. I was working in the theater. That was fine. But it was, then I did a very small, unpretentious pupil film for a film school with some really nice and talented people, and there was no pressure at all. Maybe no one would ever see the film. It was really good. And then I found my way back.
There are again. If I went just film by film, you have made such an incredible body of work so far. But I think the ones that I've been most drawn to would be your collaborations with Lars Von Trier. I was wondering if you could talk about the first time you met Von Trier.
Yeah. There was a producer, Scandinavian producers, that sent me 3 scripts, and 2 were really good, and I made those 2, and one of them was Breaking the Waves. And I went down to see Lars Von Trier about that script, together with Helena Bonham Carter, who was supposed to play Bess, which was later played by Emily Watson. And I came to his house, and the wife he had at the time, and he opened the door, and he looked at me, and he's this short, and he said, "I don't like physical contact." So I hugged him. And he tried to get out of my hug, but I just held him. And I've been doing this over the years now, but now we've known each other for 20 years, and now I can hug him. But it took some time. But that was the first meeting, and then we were sitting there talking, and he was talking about basically his own problems, and Helena Bonham Carter was half asleep on a sofa, and that was it. And then we did that film. But it's the first. He's an interesting director because all directors are control freaks. All directors have probably had rather sad childhoods. They've been children that have been sitting in their room, creating their own universe, building small worlds, or making lists over football games or something, and haven't had much social contact. And that's why they become directors, because they still want to create a world that they can handle.
How many filmmakers are there in the room? Just curious.
Yeah, how many directors? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Good. So he was a control freak like all directors, but his first 5 films, he tried to control everything. He every cut, every movement by the actors, everything he had designed at home at his desk, and he created some technically rather remarkable films. And the last one was Europa, called Zentropa in the States, which is technically fantastic and visually fantastic and absolutely dead. And he realized that it was dead, and he realized also that to get life into a film, you have to allow a certain amount of irrationality, and you have to allow the actors to become alive, which means that you can't micromanage them. So then he started with doing The Kingdom, where he let the actors free and he didn't lie too much, and the techniques sort of moved back, and the actors moved in the foreground. And then he created the Dogma Manifesto, which was about making sure that he took away all his tools to get down to the basics of a text, an actor, and photography. And he was really bad with actors when I first met him, but he had some brilliant ideas, and that was to let the actors free. And on Breaking the Waves on the set, he had big signs saying, make mistakes. And we did make mistakes. And he didn't block the scenes, and we could move wherever we wanted. He didn't care about camera right, camera left, and all that. It was a total freedom. And in that freedom, of course he got a lot of crap. But he also, what happened? You need help? It's fine. Okay. But he also let people sort of the irrationality of the moment, the things that were born in the second, he captured, and he's really good at cutting that out and using it. And he still gives you total freedom, even if it's 10 actors in a scene. He just comes with the camera and he puts it on his shoulder and he says, "Start." All right, you start, and something happens, and you can't do that if you don't have a strong script, though. His scripts are very, very strong and very. They are usually Breaking the Waves, for instance. I told him that I said to him, "This is to melodrama what Raiders of the Lost Ark was to action," because every scene is like the peak scene in a melodramatic film, and if that structure, that sort of manipulation of storytelling had been visible, it would have been an awful film. But that is just the bone structure. What brings it alive is mainly Emily Watson, but also some other actors like Catherine Cartledge, and those actors that sort of put flesh on the bone structure, so you don't see the structure, the melodramatic structure, and then suddenly it becomes interesting and works. Because there's nothing that interests us more than other human beings.
Is there anything
that was a long one.
No, it's okay. Keep it going. Makes my job easier. Is there anything that you feel like you have gleaned from him as a director, as an actor, considering that you didn't think he was very good with actors in the beginning?
Yeah, he's much more confident now, and he doesn't say much. He lets you go, and then he sometimes comes in and pushes a little and talks to you a little, but he doesn't say much. And what I learned from him was that the director shouldn't say much, which annoys a lot of directors. So usually I've more and more been able to create my own space where I can get a certain amount of freedom. And whenever a director comes in and tries to micromanage me, I get angry, which I learned from him. Because if a director says, "Okay, you say the first half of the line in that direction," and then you turn and then you look down and say it to the floor, then I say, hey, I've done 100 films. I know this better than you. You're not a better actor than me. And I even said that to Milos Forman once. And but he's generally not interfering much. But it is that's not the director's job. Milos Forman actually said that. I think it was Natalie Portman who came up to him and asked something about her character in Goya's Ghosts, a film we did together. And he said, "I don't know. You're the actor. I cast you. Fuck off. Where are we eating tonight?" That was all Milos Forman had to say.
There's a film that's playing here. A lot of films that you're in are here at the festival. But Somewhat Gentle Man, that's another director that you have had a long and storied history. I wonder if you can talk about that.
Yeah, that's Hans-Petter Molen, a Norwegian director. I haven't done many Swedish films, strangely enough, even if I am Swedish. But I have one Norwegian and one Danish director that I worked a lot with. And Hans-Petter Molen is interesting. He's not like Lars Von Trier, but he's a very good director. He's very good with actors, and he doesn't say any stupid things to you either, which is nice. Our first collaboration was in the Arctic, a film called Zero Kelvin, which was about some hunters in the 1930s in Greenland. And we shot it in Spitsbergen, and I thought I'd never come back alive because there were polar bears and there were cracks in the glaciers and everything was dangerous. And he's such an outdoor man, and I'm such a city man. I came in a white linen suit to Spitsbergen, and they just looked at me. He's the kind of guy that goes on skis for 2 days over the mountain, shoots a reindeer, carries it home on his back, and eats it raw. I'm not that. But he's a lovely man, and I made, 4 films with him. And the last 2 were kind of comedies, I would say. It was A Somewhat Gentle Man, which is, it's funny and dark at the same time. I can't really imagine myself in a comedy because I'm not very funny. But it's when I read the script, my role, I read 40 pages. He didn't say anything. He wasn't there. And I said, why? So I had to talk to Hans-Petter and say, "I hope you're going to photograph me because I'm the lead in this film and I'm not in the script." And that was because it was a silent character. But that is also something that if it is done well from the director's side, it's fantastic not to have to explain anything in lines, since exposition is the worst thing you can give to an actor. So I had a lot of pleasure doing that. And then we did another comedy called In Order of Disappearance, which I didn't understand at all, but I trusted him. Because I play sort of a naturalistic style, very low-key, normal. And then the other characters are so over the top. And when I was acting with them for the first time, there's one guy who plays a Norwegian gangster there. I said, wow, how is this going to fit into the same film? And the director said, just trust me. And I did the right thing. I trusted him. You can't trust them all, though.
You mentioned that one of the things that has attracted you to acting is collaboration, working with people that you like. But when you do get a script, you know, or you hear about a role, pardon me, what are the qualities that engage with you, that excite you, that make you interested in climbing that mountain again?
Well, it depends. Since I'm spending most of my time, when I'm not cooking and changing diapers, I'm filming. And that means I want to have a pleasant life, which means I want to work with nice people. I don't care if it's a genius, if it's an awful shoot and everybody's suffering, then I'd rather do something more fun. It's not that important. So what is it that makes me, for instance, if Lars Von Trier calls me, I'd say yes, because I'd love to play with him. We have fun. We're like kids in a sandbox. When we were supposed to do Nymphomaniac, he called me a year before. It wasn't even written. And he said, Stellan, my next film will be a porno film. Yes, Lars. I want you to play the male lead. Yes, Lars, I'm coming. But you will not get to fuck. It's fine, Lars, I'll come anyway. But you will show your dick at the end and it will be very floppy. Is that? So, and I said, yes, of course. But and then he wrote it. So in that case, I took the film because it was Lars, and I have fun working with him. That's not always it. Some directors, even if they don't have a script, you would go with because you know it will be an interesting journey and hopefully a fun one. And sometimes it's the script, and it doesn't have to be that your role is necessarily brilliant. It could be that, wow, this is something I haven't seen before. This is a film that I haven't seen before, that is challenging in one way or another, that is sort of chartering the white spots on the map, that is going out and taking some risks. And then it's interesting to be a part of that. Because if you don't take risks, you can't really do anything good. And then sometimes it's a nice bunch of actors that you want to play with. It's a fantastic location and it's very well paid. I mean, there's so many reasons to take a film.
In my mind, Von Trier has made, I mean, he's had a terrific career, of made lots of wonderful films that I think will stand the test of time. Pardon me. But I feel like he's made 3 masterpieces, and you were a part of all 3 of them. That's Breaking the Waves, Dogville, and Melancholia. But I'm curious if you have a favorite one.
I would pick Breaking the Waves, definitely. Dogville would be among them, because that's where he took his idea of taking away his tools as far as he could. He took away the set even. So it was really just actors, text, and photograph it. And then maybe what I really like about Nymphomaniac, I don't know how many, if you've seen the director's cut, which is 5.5 hours short film, which is so much nicer and so much more brutal and so much more fun in many ways. But it's a lovely kind of storytelling that reminds you of like a good novel from the 19th century. You know, you don't really care how it ends. You just want to dwell in the storytelling all the time. Yeah, I mean, Uncle Lars is telling horrible stories, and you just want to be there. It's very different from the normal film narrative where you have a sort of curve and an end that should be the payoff. There's no payoff, really, and he's not even happy with the end of that one. So those are my favorite of his films.
Going back to floppy dicks, you know, in your 60s, doing full frontal nudity. Is there anything that you wouldn't do in a film if you were asked? Has that ever come up anyway?
Well, I'm Swedish. Nudity is not a problem. My son Alexander, he was interviewed on the Conan show in America on television, and he was asked, "Did your father always walk naked at home when you were as a kid?" And Alexander said, "Yeah, he even cooked naked," he said. And then Conan said, "Well, isn't that dangerous?" And Alexander said, "No, it was so small, so." That's how he grew up. Not good advertising for me, though. Well, you've seen it, most of you. So.
You have about 900 children, I believe. You do have a lot of kids. How do you balance parenthood and working? I mean, I can't even imagine having one child, let alone eight kids, I believe.
Yeah, I have 8. It's a little less than 900. No, I have 8, but it actually took about 8 minutes to make them, so it's not that hard. But when you make films, I can make 2 films a year and still not work more than 4 months, physically work. Of course, you read and stuff, which means I can be home changing diapers and cooking and doing all the important stuff the other 8 months of the year. So, which I have been doing since all the way back to since the 80s. It's also very Swedish things. We have something called latte pappa, which is a sort of latte daddies. And you see them in the sort of hipster area of Stockholm. There's all the daddies with a little strollers walking around having lattes in their hands. I've never been really a latte papa, but I've been home a lot.
What have you enjoyed most about making these big comic book spectacle movies? I mean, they're hugely popular, so I mean, I'm sure the attention, I'm sure the money, I'm sure there are things that just make sense of, you know, the things that come along with blockbuster filmmaking. But just personally, what do you enjoy most about those?
Yeah, the first one I did was Thor 1 with Kenneth Branagh, and I wanted to work with Kenneth Branagh. And then you sign up for 5, and I've done 4 now, which is something. But then you get to work with a director like Whedon, who did the Avengers films, who is not only a very, very good writer, but he's also a good director. It's of course very different from Lars Von Trier or Hans-Peter Moland, but still it's storytelling on a very high level. I think the first Avengers film, I thought it was fantastic when I read it. Not because I was interested in all the pages where some people were hitting each other and running into buildings and things were exploding, because I don't care about that. But what was really fascinating was that he managed to make a film with, I think, 10 leading stars and still make the story work. And that's a feat. But he's very talented. And the Marvel people, they are making specifically those Marvel movies, and it's a kind of universe and a tone that is very unique, and they know everything about the sort of the level of irony, comedy, action, and all that stuff. And they're really good at it. And then you work with like Gore Verbinski on pirate movies. Gore Verbinski, who is a sort of a Salvador Dali or something of Hollywood. He's totally absurd. He feels like working with an independent film director, and he's constantly fighting the studio, of course, because there's a lot of people that has invested money that want to be sure that it becomes a hit. But if you look at one of the films, second or third film, there's a sequence with a pirate ship in a salt desert, and Johnny Depp walking around the salt desert, and there's crabs everywhere. And that's a Dadaistic or surrealistic scene, if ever you've seen one. And he managed to get Disney to pay, I don't know how many $1 million to make that scene. It's fantastic. So being around guys like that is fun.
You said you didn't really have any desire to write or direct, but you did co-write one film. What was that experience like?
Well, yeah, I co-write a film, a children's film about about death, explaining death to children. That was nice, with a very funny and sweet man. And then I wrote a little, but now I mainly rewrite my own lines. That's all I do.
How do you think you wound up with 4 actors in your family? I mean, what do you think it was? I mean, what was it like growing up or having them grow up with you? You know, as a performer, what do you think it was that sunk in with them and made them want to do that?
Well, it's not like Alexander says, that I was always naked. But I don't know. It's what they. I have never encouraged them. I've never discouraged them from any profession. I've encouraged them to do what they want. And obviously 4 of them want to become actors because they see that I'm having fun. But the good thing is also that they don't have any romantic notion or idea about what being an actor is. They know what it is. They know it's hard work. It's no glamour. It's great fun, but you have to take it seriously without taking yourself seriously.
What do you do when you're not working and changing diapers? I mean, what do you do for fun, for instance? I mean, what are the things that you like to do, both as hobbies and things that you just strive for in your life?
Except changing diapers and making babies. And no, I like cooking. I cook a lot. But that's if you have a lot of children, when they grow up, the only way to be sure that they come and see you is to cook well. Because there's nothing is as good as a good meal to draw a child to you and keep them there. So I cook for most of them like two times a week. That's what I do. And then I read books.
What's your best dish?
I don't have one. Jesus.
If I came over for dinner next week,
okay.
what would you feed me?
I don't know. I have to know you a little better before I decide.
That's fair. Well, at this point, I think we start peppering in some questions from the audience. If you'd like to ask Mr.
If I like singing, I like singing more than people like to listen to me singing. That's true. I've done one musical, and that was Mamma Mia, and it was frightening to get into the sound studio because we pre-recorded the songs, and there is Björn and Benny and some professional musicians, and I'm going to sing their song, and I know I can't sing, and they spend most of the time just comforting me and saying it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, and then they have Pierce Brosnan, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, and then they have Colin Firth, oh don't worry, don't worry. So they're really sweet, Björn and Benny, and then you sing your heart out, and then they sort of digitally fix it. So today it's not a big problem being a singer.
In the late '60s, you recorded a single, which I read you're not too thrilled about.
Well, that was after I did a TV series at the age of 16 in Sweden and became very famous. Somebody realized they could make money out of this kid, 16-year-old kid. So somebody called me and said, "Hey, I think you should make a record." And I said, "I can't sing." And it was on the phone, all the negotiations. And then he said, "Well, sing this," he said. And I heard a guitar somewhere in the back. And then perfect. Come to Stockholm immediately. And I was sent up to Stockholm, and we started recording there. And after a while of recording, the guy came out into the studio and he said, "You know what? I think I'll sing first, and you'll sort of sing backup." And then he sang, and then I was supposed to sing backup, and then and then, I think I'll do backup too, but maybe you can talk a little on the show on the record. So it ended up being a terrible record, and the most important newspaper in Sweden had on the first page Stellan Skarsgård that we learned to love in this TV series. We don't love him anymore, and that was hard on a 16-year-old.
What are your own musical inclinations as far as what you like to listen to?
Well, I listen to I listen to almost everything. I listen to classical music, jazz. I listen to indie pop, a lot of indie stuff, blues and old rock, anything.
What's on your playlist right now? What have you been listening to in recent months?
Jenny Wilson, a Swedish singer. Yep. Indie.
More questions from Mr. Skarsgård? Yes. Just do it nice and loud.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, because I believe it was you who said that, like, no matter how good
That's right, but that's my sort of my idea. Since I've never been really career oriented, but I like making films, and I think the main objective is to make the film as good as possible, which means that sometimes if you can't go in and be brilliant, because then you can fuck up the film. What you have to sort of you have to play what is most important for the film. You have to play what is most important for the scene. Try to do that as well as you can. But if you have another actor in the scene that perhaps is terrified, then you have to spend a lot of energy to encourage that actor, so that actor becomes better, because the scene is not going to get better than the weakest link of the scene, which in this case is the other actor. So some scenes you are maybe not as good as you could have been, but still truthful, of course. But the other actor becomes better, and it's like finding a but what it boils down to is finding a communication with the other actor where you actually start talking with each other, so it's not two solos in the scene. There are some actors are really good at preparing themselves at home in front of the mirror and go and deliver that performance, and I hate watching it because what I see is a solo, and they're not talking to anybody, they're not listening to anybody. You can say, wow, you could do that in circus on your own, but nothing is happening in the scene. And to me, when the air between two actors become really dense and electrified and loaded, that makes me more happy than if someone is brilliant on their own.
Similarly, working with inexperienced actors, do you have any memorable stories, whether good or bad, working with inexperienced filmmakers, like first-time filmmakers?
Yeah, I've done quite a few first-time directors, and usually it has been based on not a brilliant script or a brilliant short film they made. It's been based on meeting them. Because when they're first-time directors, you can't really know if they're good or bad. But you can feel if they have an urge to tell a story. There's something that has to come out of them. There's an energy. There's a sort of insanity in them that drives them to do this. And then it's fantastic working with them. Of course, I know more about filmmaking than they do, but I don't know more about making their film than they do. Which means that you have to be rather humble at the same time, because in a second, I could turn the entire crew against them by saying, that's not the way to do it. But I don't know that. It doesn't matter if I made 100 films, because I've never made his film. And he might have something completely new that I don't know about. So the only thing you can contribute with is putting a lot of ideas on the floor, and then he can pick whatever, or she can pick whatever they want. But it's like Insomnia, a film I did with Erik Kjellberg, which turned out very well. He did a fantastic job, and that was his first film. And Hans-Petter Moland's film was basically his first film. He'd done his failure before that. Some directors just make a first film, and then they do a couple of failures afterwards and never heard of again. But it's I like to. I don't know how much is sort of intellectually analyzing something and how much is just feeling a good vibration together with the other human being. But when you feel that, hey, I can with this guy, I could go on a journey. I could climb a mountain with this guy. I can hang out with him. We could invent things together. If you have that feeling, it's more probable that you will do something good together.
You mentioned that you're still learning as you go, but is there anything that you learned early on in your career that still helps guide you?
Not really. I mean, I have very few rules, and I also try to change. Sometimes I change my way of working and everything. Try something new, but I always just try to be on time, basically, and know my lines and be nice to people and have fun.
More questions? Yes.
And there's probably a lot of actors I've never heard of that I'd love to work with. The thing is that just because they're well known doesn't mean they're the best always. And that is a good thing with this job. You get to work in different countries with actors from all over the world, and suddenly up comes an actor that in front of you that you've never heard of, from some obscure country in the world, and is just as good as any star of the world. I've never had dreams really about the future. People ask me, do you have a dream project, a dream role, or dream actor, dream director? I've never been interested in dreaming about the future because I've been too busy with the present. And I really enjoy that. And also, if you have too many dreams about, oh, that would be fantastic, compared to the dream, the present would fade a little, wouldn't it?
Are you much of a film buff yourself?
It depends. I have 2 small children now, so now I'm not watching that much film. It depends on when there's a gap in child production, then I watch a lot.
Well, then if you don't have as much time, you have to be pickier with your choices. What do you tend to go for? Do you see things that are closer to the kinds of movies that you like to be involved in, or does your taste?
I do see, since I'm both in the European Academy and the American Academy, I see a lot of the Academy films. And in European films, you get a lot of really interesting independent films, and you get quite a few entertaining and sometimes very good American films in the other Academy. But
anything you'd like to give a shout out to that you were tickled by in
well,
recent
the
years?
last film I saw quite recently actually was Ida, Polish film.
You don't need to tell this room that.
Which I think was fantastic. So it's I'm not very narrow in my taste. I like heavily entertaining, popcorny films as well, and films that nobody else but me wants to see.
It's good to have a balance of a little high, a little low. Any more questions out there? Yes, sir.
We found like your name time after the interview.
Yes. I hope everybody appreciated that question.
More substantial question, perhaps? Yes.
I have a question. Could you tell us why did you become an actor in the first place?
Why I became an actor in the first place? I still don't know. I mean, I started working as an amateur and did some amateur work in the theater. And when I was 16, I got this role that made me famous and gave me more theater work. And I still thought I would become a diplomat. And I still think there's a chance I might become one. But I'm still enjoying doing acting, and as long as I enjoy it, I will continue to do it, I think. It's not a conscious choice.
How much of, conscious is an interesting word to say with acting, because since I'm not an actor, I don't really understand that skill set. But I mean, how much, you said you don't like to prepare because it doesn't really work that way, but how much is conscious and how much just kind of happens and you're not even sure why?
I prepare a lot, but I don't decide what to do. And that's very different. I mean, I think about the role, I learn the lines, I think of 1,000 possible ways of doing it. I think about what is the framework within which I have to work? What is necessary to make the film work? And that is the framework. And within that frame, I can then be totally free. And then it depends on the day on the set, you have to be very flexible. And then whatever the other actor does, whatever idea the director comes up with, whatever accidents that happen when you shoot the scene, everything has to be a part of what you're doing. And the hard thing is not to be skilled. The hard thing is to be alive in front of the camera. One of the directors that taught me more about film acting than anybody else was a Swedish director called Widerberg. He was a regular in Cannes in the 60s, 70s, a brilliant man. And he said, the first time I worked with him, it was me and some really experienced actors, and he said, I know that you know how to do this, but I don't want to see your fucking tools. I want you to be just as good as the amateurs are that will be in the film. And I know exactly what he means, because the thing is, an amateur can on film, not on stage, but on film an amateur can be sometimes more good and better than an actor, because they're just alive, and that's what the camera sees. You talked about, if you see a Lars Von Trier film, Dancer in the Dark, the lead actress, Björk, she's an amateur, but she's fantastic, and she deserved the prize in Cannes for it. The camera sees what you think, what you feel. It sees if there is life in you. And that means that if you're a skilled actor, you have to make sure that your tools doesn't show, and you can't use them. And it is, in a way, it is to have all your tools, but at the same time, become as fresh as an amateur in front of the camera. And that's the hard thing, to be as spontaneous, as fresh, as vulnerable as an amateur would be. So it takes a lot of work to become as good as an amateur.
We only see the final product. We only see the film when it's completed. But I was wondering if you could talk about any specific roles that were particularly challenging, or you know, that you couldn't quite wrap your brain around easily.
Yeah, well, I think they're all difficult, but it's I don't know which one to pick there, actually. No, I can't say any. But usually it is the less expressive they are. The roles that you will never get an Oscar for are more difficult. I mean, if you're playing something very extrovert, or if you have a handicap or something, then you get a lot of help, and you get a lot of freedom in that. But if you're making, like if you look at, what's it called, the film, was it The Constant Gardener with
Ray Fiennes?
With Ray Fiennes, where he plays a very square, a very boring man. It's fantastic what he does. It's absolutely wonderful. He manages to give life to this very, very ordinary man in a beautiful way. And that's so difficult. That is the kind of roles that are the big challenges usually.
Time for some more? Yes.
Yeah, well, a Swedish high-budget film is like an American indie film. As you know, it's a problem with small countries with small resources is when they want to be American, because then they fuck themselves up big time, because it's gonna be Wang, Wang, but they can't afford it, and they don't have the skills for it. So it's if you have lower budgets, you have to have other qualities that carry your film than special effects, for instance, or fantastic car chases. Then you can, maybe an interesting human story is stronger than a car chase. But working with my sons, I've actually worked with all of them in different films. I think, not the youngest ones, but it's really interesting, because you think the same way. It's very you very quickly come to the same conclusion about how the scene should be done, and you don't have to talk much about it. You just sort of, oh yeah, all right, yeah, I know, exactly. Let's do it that way. So it's very shorthand in that sense. But then it's also ridiculous. Like you were talking about a film called Arn, which is a Swedish attempt to be grandiose, and we were both in fake beards, and we come to the set from different dressing rooms, and we just look at each other, and then we laugh for half an hour. Everybody's just waiting. Okay, stop it. But we couldn't stop laughing, because it's also, you can't take someone you know that well really seriously, you know, in a fake beard.
We've got time for maybe 2 more questions. Yes, back there.
did you say? I didn't hear. Well, I'll retire when I get tired of this. Since or they will retire me. You don't know, because suddenly I won't get any offers anymore. But I still think it's fun, and also I've made a vasectomy, which means I will not get any more children. So I'm done with diapers. And my mother is dead. I don't have to change her diapers either anymore. So that's the way it is.
Amazing. One more? It's got to be a good one, though. Someone's got one. Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned that you like to cook, right? So I think that you like to eat as well. So have you ever eaten Polish dishes like pierogies or something?
Yes, but my favorite is probably the Zurek, which is a wonderful. It's for those who don't know, it's a wonderful soup made from it's almost like sourdough soup, you could say, because it's
sour rye, right?
Yes, fermented sour rye, and I make it. My kids love it, so I make it at home. But I had a nice one yesterday. But I'm still. I mean, every time I come to Poland, I want to eat a lot of Zurek. It's the white borscht kind of thing. It's really beautiful.
You've been to Poland before. Had you been to Krakow before?
Never been to Krakow. I've only been to Warsaw.
I know you haven't had a whole lot of time here, but what have you enjoyed most about the city?
Well, the Zurek yesterday was really good. But then it's beautiful, and I went down to the salt mine today, which was pretty remarkable as well.
I did that too.
Yeah.
Did you do the miner outfit?
No, I didn't.
See, someone else saying that. You didn't.
I didn't
there was
get
like
to
the
dress
tourist
out of-
way, and you can like see all the chapel and stuff built out of salt. But then the real tour is putting on like a miner helmet, and you actually like go
pretend
down
you're a
and-
man.
Yes. You go down
And
in
you
the dark
walk
with a
differently.
flashlight, and
That's not, no, I didn't get to do that. But I also had the joy of having my 6-year-old son with me, so I saw it all through his eyes, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you all so very much for coming
Thank you.
out, and once again, Stellan Skarsgård.